Hey everyone, welcome back. We're very excited today here. Again, this is Joe Rosa. I'm excited to have our special guest, Ricky Carruth, who was actually our keynote speaker this year at our Legacy Summit. So I appreciate you coming in, Ricky, man. How's it going?
It's my pleasure.
All right, man.
Spend some time with you, bro.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. So I got some questions I definitely kind of want to dive into, and we'll just kind of have a free-flowing conversation. So let's see how long we actually take here. But I'm excited. So right off the bat, first one. I get this question asked a lot, so I'm sure you do too as well. So obviously there's a lot of, I would call it, uncertainty in the real estate industry today, and we'll kind of dive into why that's actually happening. But even for folks that are not in the industry, right, everyday folks, right, whether they're getting their news from social media, they're watching Fox, MSNBC, there's all these different assumptions being made today about our industry. And so I saw recently on one of your most recent social media posts, you talked about the potential decline of real estate agents, right? We may see less agents in the marketplace. Can you dive a little deeper into that and give the folks kind of like what your thoughts are in regards to that?
Yeah. I mean, it's already here, really.
Yeah.
71% of agents didn't close a deal last year.
That's crazy.
I mean, we're pretty much there. Yeah. They're still licensed, but they're not really agents.
Right.
I wouldn't really call them agents.
Yeah. They're not making money.
Yeah,
right,
we've already lost them. They're already gone. They're still paying their fees and stuff. And so, a strong opinion of mine is that agents will make more money over the next 10 years than they've ever made.
Really?
Ever made. And the reason being is because AI, technology, communication is going to continue to create the scenario where agents can sell more properties in less time. Email. MLS, DocuSign, Zillow. Zillow, there was no way I could sell 100 properties a year like I did without Zillow.
Right.
Because Zillow took the time that I was spending looking for properties for buyers and gave it to the buyers.
Right.
Now I took that time and spent it helping more people.
Yeah.
And I was able to, sell more properties in less time.
Yeah.
You look at ForSaleBanner.com.
Right.
ForSaleBanner.com came out, and agents we're going to get extinct. This is going to replace us.
Yeah.
For sale by owners everybody can just sell their property on their own now.
Right.
No, it just gave me a easier avenue to call for sale by owners and get more listings.
Sure.
Every single little thing that's come along that has so-called threatened agents, existence has done nothing but help agents sell more properties in less time.
Yeah.
And so that's not going to get worse.
Right.
It's going to get better. And so as technology gets better and AI gets better and communication and technology, that's going to continue. So the agents that understand how to use it to be more efficient in their business, I'm a really efficient person. I was a single agent outselling every team in my market, more volume than entire teams. Right now I run a multi-million dollar coaching business with 0 employees.
Right.
And I do it with a very high quality of life. I'm really, I'm an efficiency junkie, basically. And for people that look for and take advantage of efficiencies in technology and communication and social media and stuff like that, they're going to be the ones that survive over the next 10 years. And the ones that aren't really efficiency, driven people that kind of get lost in the weeds and stay distracted, they're not going to make it. And the ones that do will sell more properties in less time.
Right.
They'll make more money. And the ones that don't won't. Another thing is I believe that we're going to have more transactions. Right. I think
Why's that?
Well, I think we were in this 4.8 to 5 million a year existing home sale normal market for a long time. And I think this next run will be a little higher, 5 to 5.2, maybe, whatever. I think our new norm is going to be a little higher, because every 8 to 10 years to 12 years, we see this cycle. We saw the down of 2008. Now we're seeing this. Last year was a 30-year low when it comes to number of transactions with 70 million more people than 30 years ago. We see these down cycles and it'll happen again, right? And in between the cycles, we kind of get to a new normal. It kind of stair steps up after a couple of years, gets back to a new normal, and then we're kind of there for a while until, whatever the next downfall is. And I think that new normal is going to be a little stronger because of the amount of population, the amount of family formations, but not only that, the amount of sellers who are literally they hate their home they're in,
Right.
and they're dying to move. They just can't.
Right.
There's so much pent up demand between that and first time
That was
home
gonna be,
buyers.
yeah, one of my next questions right now for you. Yes.
I mean, first time home buyers we haven't seen as many 30-something-year-old people in the US in decades since the baby boomers came through. Like, it literally dropped off, and then it ramped up literally in the last couple of years. These, the birth rates in 1990 on, where that's just hitting us for these 30-year-olds. And the average first time home buyer just in the past few years went from 33 to 38. So people are waiting longer because of the unaffordability issue and home prices and interest rates and so on and so forth. It's making it harder for people to buy homes, in that mid 30 range. So they're having to wait a little longer. And I just believe that because of the birth rates, the population, the family formations, the pent up demand from trade up sellers, I think all that equals a higher new norm for a little while. Yeah. I don't think it'll continue, but I think this next run of our, in between down cycle markets is going to be kind of a new norm. And I think the next 10 years for agents is very, very interesting because of everything I just said. On top of the fact that commission rates are not going to go down.
Right. So you got some very good points there I want to touch on. So especially that last one, but let's go back to what you initially said. So, one of the things that I've been saying for some time, and I'm glad you said it, I didn't have to kind of lead you to, so the audience doesn't think that I'm leading you to say this kind of a response, but a lot of agents today have always come up to me and says, Joe, like, are you concerned about technology eventually replacing us, like AI and other things that are out there now? Everybody now has access to all this information literally in the palm of their hand, right? Just by going on their actual cell phone. I've always said, and you kind of just said it, is that, it's the agents that don't embrace technology, those are the ones that are going to get left behind, right? It's the agents that actually embrace technology and utilize it to be more efficient, to be able to, the old saying, right? Work smarter, not harder. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones that are really going to be able to now kind of thrive and continue to elevate now their business in this new era, of our industry.
I'll tell you what it is. It's going to be the agents that understand to the core what the business really is.
Right.
And the reason why agents won't be replaced is because there has to be a real consultation.
Sure.
And AI, as great as it, even you look in the future of what it could be,
right,
it still can't do that. And so that's very interesting. And so the agents that make it are going to be the ones that find efficiency, but I can break it down step by step. It's going to be the agents that use technology.
Right.
To get to the conversation, the real conversation, the quickest, mm-hmm. with the right people, but then know what to do in the conversation to connect and get them to open up to you about what they want to do and why, so you can help put together a plan and help them through the process, and then use technology to make the transaction, more streamlined, like efficiently handle the transaction itself. Right. And then have systems on the back end where every single person you ever talk to never forgets who you are. So the agents that I'll just go back to the beginning, that use technology to get to the conversation the quickest. And we live in a world where people just want to post and wait. They want to buy leads. They want to wait on stuff to happen. They want to wait on leads to come to them. And I read it in your book. I basically just read your entire book here while I was waiting. That Mike Ferry said that, and who knows where he got it from, because I don't think he ever had a license. But he said that you either wait, you either buy the leads, or you build you go out and get the business.
Right.
And it's very interesting because the agents who understand the core skill that they need to have to build their business is just one thing: to be able to talk to anyone and make them feel comfortable enough with you to open up to you about what they want to do, regardless of what it is.
Right.
You could want to buy or sell today, buy or sell in 5 years, 2 years, 6 months, never. I don't really care.
Yeah.
When you want to do something, I'm not trying to get you to do something. I'm just trying to get you to tell me what it is you want to do so I can help you do it.
Yeah.
Stop acting like I'm here to try to sell your house or get you to buy something. I'm not.
Right.
I'm here to help you. And I think the agents that understand that and then take that and apply it to the right people, mm-hmm. in my opinion, people that already own the exact properties you want to sell, because you can't have conversations with every single person in your market, are going to be the ones that crush it over the next 10 years. But it's very interesting what you said about people saying AI might replace us and stuff like that, and why do consumers need us? They have all the information.
Right.
What's very interesting and fascinating is that we are at an all-time high with the amount of information that consumers have. I mean, a lot of times the consumer already knows more about this one specific house.
Yeah,
they know more about it than we do.
Us and trying to educate us.
Yeah. Like they've researched this thing more than we have time to do when we're, showing a bunch of houses and researching a lot of houses. They're just focused on this one house they're interested in.
Right.
So they end up knowing a little more than we do about the house. That's not why they need an agent. People have a misconception that they need real estate agents for information or to find the buyer, to unlock a door, take a picture. That none of that is the case. All those are just bonuses on top of what we actually do. And so we're at this all-time high of the amount of information consumers have, but we're also simultaneously at an all-time high of the amount of consumers that use real estate agents. Right. So why are we at this paradigm where we have consumers who know the most, know more than they've ever known about real estate and these houses and the market and closed sales, and they can even look up stuff about how to negotiate, how to write contracts. They can find the step-by-step processes. They know more than they've ever known, but yet more consumers are using agents than ever before at the same time.
Right.
And it just kind of goes to show you that the more that they know, the more complicated the process actually becomes. I mean, it's like when I sell my coaching, right? I don't hold back anything. Right. I tell them every little last detail because I know that the more I tell them, the more they're going to need me.
Sure.
And it's the same thing with consumers, and it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better.
Yeah. So you also touched on a little bit there about this potential pumped up demand. Dive a little deeper into that. What do you think? Because a lot of folks are asking me, all right, so, what can we expect, right? And everybody wants, especially, us to kind of look into a crystal ball and kind of give them exact forecast, right? The market's going to flip now on, March 20th or whatever else, right? So what's your thoughts? Because I have some thoughts too in regards to kind of what we should really kind of be seeing now here over the next 12, 18, 24 months.
I'll talk about this on stage. That right now will go down. 2025 will go down as the best year in history for agents to get in the business, to be in the business, to start the business, to have a license. This is literally will go down in history because of what I believe will happen over the next 10 years. And I don't know if we'll see another 10-year period like we're fixing to see.
Really?
Like this is it. And
why is that?
Well, everything I just said. I think we'll have a new norm of higher transactions. I think the technology boom. I think all these things, commission's going to stay the same. I mean, if you have a class action lawsuit and you literally lose it and commissions go up, okay? I mean, it kind of tells you like you're dealing with Mother Nature here, right? You got Redfin that just sold. They lost $150 million over the last year. Yeah. Okay. They're even more than a flat fee. They're a 1% list brokerage, right? Not flat fee, but like you got a company like that that's been around forever that is literally crushing it, that gets a lot of eyeballs, and they're losing $150 million a year. Of course we're going to sell to Rocket. It just goes to show you that flat fee, lower commission, you lose money. I broke it down. When after a buyer agent works 87 and a half hours on average on a deal, when you take the average commission and you subtract broker fees, marketing fees, management fees, gas money, all the fees and stuff that, all the general public, they think we get a check for 3%, and they're like, oh, you're making $12,000 for what? I didn't make $12,000. Okay. I gave all this to this person, this to that person, this to this person. And you know what I got left after I divide by 87 and a half hours? Close to minimum wage. Yeah. All right. The upside for agents, right? The reason that they're able to like really, really crush it. And when you see these agents that are on social and you're just like, okay, like, this can't be right. Like, there's no way you should be making that much money. The reason those agents do that is because they've learned the art of handling several deals at once. Right. And really your ability to handle, that mental capacity to handle several deals at once is really what's going to dictate, you being able to actually leverage yourself. These agents that do one deal, at a time, and they're just kind of their mental capacity is full, with one or two or three deals, that's what's tough. But with real estate, you can juggle a bunch of them one time, and that's where you see a lot of these agents making a lot of money.
Yeah, so you also touched on this too as well. So I've been dealing with this a lot in the public markets. Like when I go around and start, whether I'm speaking at a conference, talking to individual investors, everyone again is trying to kind of forecast. And I'll dive a little bit deeper into this NAR settlement that occurred last year and how it's impacting our industry. But you touched on that, everyone thought commissions were going to go down, but it really hasn't been the case.
They went up.
Yeah. Why?
What they've done is buyer agent commissions are higher now than they were this time last year.
Yeah.
Right now as we speak, and last year was before the settlement. So in a pre-settlement world, right now in a post-settlement world, we're making the buyer agent commission is higher, and the reason it's higher is because the settlement created this new world that we now live in, whereas they basically said, hey, you guys have done a really poor job of articulating your value over the last 40 years. We want you to have to articulate your value now so that the customer can decide.
Right.
And so now they basically forced us to articulate our value,
right,
at a higher level than we were, and in my opinion, customers are seeing the value better, so they're willing to pay more. I mean, that's really kind of the best way I can explain it. I want to go back because I almost weaved right back and right out of your question with the pent up demand.
Yeah.
Why do I think there's pent up demand? Is that what you were asking?
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything I said. The family formations, the sellers who literally, I mean, how many people do you know that really want to move? Like you call sellers and like, yeah, we really want to move. This house is too small, or we really want to be on the water, or we really want to be on that side of town, but they can't. I would love to see what the numbers really are as far as like the percentage. Like I'd love to see a survey, like how many property owners are just over the top been ready for years to move. And so when you see that, we're behind on construction. I think construction is going to ramp up. Once we get through this cycle with what's happening with tariffs and stuff, and we know what's happening. We just had an amazing inflation report. Did you see it?
No.
Probably not, because it happened as we started this, but that's how on top of things I try to stay. But it was 2.8. And what we've seen with inflation is, if you look at it, last month's was 3, and you're like, uh-oh. But if you look at the last couple years, since it was at 9 and it came down, you'll see it do this number where it kind of peaks every year. Sure. And what we're seeing is that the new highs are lower than last year's highs.
Yeah, so we're seeing the trend is obvious.
The trend is going down, right? And so that's what's very interesting. And then today's inflation was 2.8, which was below estimates, which just kind of goes to show you that we're heading in the right direction with this thing. Mm-hmm. And so over the next, in 2008, when, that was the low as far as transactions, well, it took it, I want to say 2011-ish or 12 is when we kind of were getting back to this 4.5 years, 5 million a year existing home sale market. The same thing's going to happen now.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see this year is going to be pretty similar to last year, honestly, when it comes to transactions, maybe a tick higher. But even to be a tick higher, something's going to have to happen between now and the rest of the year, different than what happened last year. Mortgage rates come down quite a bit because they've come down from a little over 7 to a little under 6 now, and that hasn't really moved the needle. We were seeing an uptick in showing requests and mortgage applications and things of that nature. So it's positive to the market, but it's nothing that's really going to move the needle, because you can put in mortgage application. That doesn't mean you're going to buy a house. You can look at a house and that doesn't mean you're actually going to buy the house. But home sales seem to be trending exactly where they were last year at this point. So I think we're going to have like a couple more years. It's going to take it a couple years, but like I was getting at, when a market is down, right? So an agent if an agent's at the peak of their career, they're doing 100 deals a year, and the market takes a big hit like we had last year, it can fluctuate your business 10, 20, 30%. You could sell 70 homes instead of 100 or whatever. In like a very like horrible like depression type market, maybe you go down 50%, but it can't take you out.
Right.
Because closings they will happen every single day for the rest of your life, regardless of market conditions.
Sure.
And they'll happen by the truckloads. Even at the very bottom, it's still a lot of deals happening. And you just have to learn how to kind of navigate those waters. But when the market rebounds, which happens 110% of the time, the market can be responsible if you take advantage of the low moment to expand your database.
Right.
It can be responsible for a 3, 4, 5, 6x of your business. So a market on the downside can only really hurt you 10, 20, 30%.
Yeah.
But on the upside, when it flips, it can 2, 3, 4, 5x your business, depending on where you are in your, building your business phase. That's what's really interesting about right now is you got technology, you got more transactions coming. Commissions have, proven the test of time with the lawsuit and everything else that's happening. Like, we're good. It's all set up, right? So now it's just about the agent. Are they going to take this moment where it's slow and not slow down with the market, but use it to expand their database, expand their influence, expand the footprint of their bit in their markets, so that more people know who they are, what they do, and they're here to help. And then they have systems to make sure nobody ever forgets them. Then it's just, okay, let me sell the 70 a year for a couple years, because I know when the market flips, I'm going to be at 150.
I've always used this comparison, like, obviously a few years back when we went through COVID, I see an unbelievable, and every year, within our company, we always try to think of a word, a theme for the year. And so for this year here in 2025, it's all about opportunity. And it's about setting yourself up to be in the right position for the opportunities that are about to come our way. And so I love kind of what you're saying, but, going back to the example of COVID, I saw so many agents, obviously, especially here in Florida, when we went through COVID for a few months, we were shut down. A lot of agents were kind of coming up with their stories in their head now about, why everything was going to be, down, and, all these, like, I would say doom, these doom stories, right? And then when the market flipped, it was literally like almost like here in Florida, especially almost like overnight. And it was the agents that kept pushing through and kept setting themselves up, putting themselves in the right position, working their database, growing their database, right? Trying to improve themselves. When that market flipped, man, they were just, they had their arms wide open, and they just took it all in. And we saw agents literally, truly 3x, 4x, 5x their business within a period of like 6 months.
Exactly.
It was amazing. So that's what I really want, all the agents that are out there listening, just, be ready. Seize this unbelievable opportunity that's now coming our way. So,
it is. That kind of sums me up in a nutshell.
Right.
Because April 28th or so of 20, the whole country was shut down.
Right.
This is when we were that 45-day, economic shutdown. We're all quarantined. We're all sitting in our house. I put a video on YouTube that's still there, and I said, as soon as the economy opens up, the real estate market is going to boom like we've never seen it. We're going to see the biggest surge we've ever seen.
Right.
I saw it coming.
Right.
And this is when pending deals were down 80%. Closings were down 80%. Everything was down 80% during that 45-day shutdown. And I said, here comes the big one. Yeah. And I knew we were going to see a 2021. I didn't know it was going to be as big as it was or last as long as it did.
Right.
But I knew we were going to get a massive pop. And so when a market contracts, every agent should be sitting back just licking their chops thinking, here we go, because there's always demand, and right now we have more than ever. But it only takes one little thing for that dam to break and that demand to kind of come out and show itself. But when a market contracts, you got to realize that demand doesn't stop. So when the market contracts, the demand's just building and building and building.
Right.
So on the other side of this contraction, there's going to be a huge surge.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's bigger than others. But you have to. You've got to go through a year like last year to understand how to handle a year like last year.
Right.
And once you've been through a whole cycle, I got in 2002, and so I went through, the up, and then the 2008, and then the recovery, and then back to the normal market. And so I saw the whole thing, in real time. And when you go through the whole cycle, then it's like it clicks.
Yeah.
You understand it, and you're like, oh, And then you realize how to take advantage of each part of the cycle, right? And that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. Like this 30-year low is setting up a massive surge.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's going to happen this year. It might.
Right.
I don't think it's going to happen next year. It might. I don't know when it's going to happen. That's the thing. You don't know when these things are going to happen.
Of course.
But you know it's coming. It's like a tidal wave.
Yeah.
You know it's coming. You don't know when it's going to hit.
Right.
You know, and the best opportunity is before it gets here, right? What the best time to take an opportunity is before, during, or after, right? It's before.
Yeah.
You know, you don't wait till it's hitting. That's what a lot of agents do. You know, oh, the market's slow. What's the use?
Let me jump in now, but you already have so many folks now that are way ahead of you. They're like ahead of you.
Right. And you go get interviewed by a seller for a listing and they're interviewing 3 agents.
Yeah.
Well, you're the one that they know the least.
Right.
Even though you might have the best personality, the best presentation, all the things. They've been talking to this other guy for 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. He cold called him 2 years ago, made friends, been sending a weekly email. They know what to expect. He's been consistent, dependable, you know, hardworking. They're like, that's our guy. You know, we like you, but this guy's, you know, we've been talking to him for longer. That's the thing. You want to plant those seeds.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, there's definitely signs out there too as well. I mean, you touched on it earlier too. Even though it hasn't moved the needle a whole lot, is that whenever we have seen interest rates just kind of get a little bit softer, you know, we've seen obviously an uptick. And again, the mortgage applications don't automatically convert into sales, but we see that there is this like pent up demand on the sideline. So if you're out there listening, just, you know, be prepared, seize this unbelievable opportunity that's, you know, we all feel is right around the corner. So another question I got for you. So I know you're big into social media. So talk a little bit about that. So how important is social media for realtors today? I mean, how can they truly take advantage of all the different platforms that are out there now, and how can they really brand themselves?
Well, number one, I don't think it's mandatory.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it is an avenue, and every single avenue works.
Right.
So I don't preach on you should only do this, or you should do this, or you shouldn't do that. I say whatever method you use that creates conversations with the right people at the frequency that your business grows at the pace that you desire.
Right.
You want to make $1 million, $2 million, $500,000, 100,000, whatever you want to make. As long as whatever you're doing is creating conversations, right, at the right frequency where your business grows at the pace that you want, I'm happy. I'm not, you know, there's not a one size fits all. Some people are great at social. Some people hate it. Some people this or that. And the industry makes us think it's mandatory. It's not mandatory.
Right.
As long as whatever you're doing creates conversation and you're able to capitalize on those conversations and build those relationships and then nurture those relationships and scale your personality through whatever systems you have, then you're good to go. With that being said, it's a massive tool.
Right.
And that everybody should use it, but don't feel like you have to use it. Because truth is, you don't. I know people that make $1 million just doing TikTok.
Yeah.
I know agents that make $1 million just doing YouTube.
Right.
That's their only lead gen activity. They just do YouTube videos. They make $1 million. I know people that make $1 million on Instagram, Facebook. That's all they do. They don't run ads. It's organic, and they make $1 million. I know several agents in each category that do that. And so I think that you got to kind of get in there, figure out what works best for you. They all work. As far as like being on like a ton of different platforms, yeah. Your consumers are going to.
That's one thing, because there are. I mean, like my kids have to educate me sometimes on some of the newer popular.
There's platforms. A lot of platforms.
Yeah, I mean, I just can we just keep
and they all
simple?
have different formats. They all have different nuances.
Yeah,
they all have different functionalities and things, and they change so fast.
Right.
You literally have to become an expert, and then it's like a full-time job just to keep up with like one platform to keep up with the changes and and what to do and stuff like that. And as agents, we're building our businesses. We're trying to help our clients, and we don't have time to really be a full-time A, content creator, B, platform researcher, to really do all the research and development. So what you need to do is keep it really simple. For agents. And there's a lot of different strategies and a lot of different, as far as content creation and what to do. For me,
I always try to tell our agents is whatever platform you're going to use, just be authentic, be yourself. Because you see sometimes some of these agents they'll get on there and it's like almost too scripted, right? You don't feel like there's the ability to create a connection to your audience. So
I think good lighting, I think good audio.
Yeah.
I think being yourself. I think, like I'll do my green screen videos and I'll go outside to do them because you don't hear the echo. When you're in a room and you're doing your video with your phone, there's an echo.
Sure.
Because the sound is great, right? But when I'm outside, it sounds really crisp. And so it's little things like that, I think, that really kind of go a long way. But being super authentic. And so like the really high polished, high edited videos, yeah, there are some that still do well, but overall, that doesn't really hit, especially if you're not like a big influencer or somebody that people know.
Yeah.
I think, being creative and coming up with things that, having great hooks behind your content that actually draws people in. The problem I see a lot of agents, they'll start out with, hey, this is so-and-so with whatever realty, down here. It's like by then they already scrolled. They don't even know what you were getting into. It's tell them that at the end. Start out with, hey, do you need a house in Orlando?
Right.
Or something that's going to get them to watch the rest of it based on their interest, when they hit that video. Dude, social media, I've been doing it for 8 years now.
Yeah. Well, that was gonna be my next question is, obviously, and I need to be honest, like I'm kind of taking advantage. I know of you, I've been following you, but some of our folks maybe don't know too much about your past. Tell everybody kind of how you got started, but also since we're on social media on that topic, how'd you build, because you have a pretty nice following. So how'd you build, the following that you have today on all these different platforms?
Yeah. I have actually one of the biggest followings of agents in the world.
Yeah.
So I grew up roofing houses. I got in real estate in 2002. I made $1 million quick, lost it all, went homeless, sleeping in my car, roofing houses, working on oil rig, got laid off from the oil rig and got back in 2008. And I learned the weekly email, right? My clients were like, send me a weekly list of foreclosures, like 30 of them told me that. I was like, okay. Then I just started sending it to everybody. Then it turned into a weekly email report after all the foreclosures went away. But dude, 2008, the easiest market, that's what I'm saying. Like right now is the hardest market we'll ever see in history for agents, right? Do you realize that?
Yeah.
The reason being is because when it gets busier, it's easier because there's more transactions. Everything's cool, right? If it gets worse than this, that means prices went down.
Right.
How hard is this to sell a cheaper house?
Yeah.
It's easier, right? So right now we're at this really weird paradigm where we're at a 30-year low with transactions, literally no transactions, but we're at an all-time high prices.
Yeah.
It's like the buyers and sellers are doing a standoff right now. And so in 2008, everything was half off.
Right.
It was the easiest time ever to sell, and there were no agents.
Yeah.
Everybody left, and everything was half off. It was like, okay. And that's when I got back in and started building my business on relationships and doing it the right way. And so I built it up to 100 deals a year by 14. I was the number one agent in my MLS for 8 years.
Wow.
And then in 2017, I made $1 million the first time. And that's when I quit prospecting. Well, I made $1 million for 4 more years. With zero prospecting because the way I did the email and the way that I built my database and everything. And I took that time I used to prospect and started writing books and speaking and coaching, and eventually led to starting to coach agents and doing social media and stuff like that. So I started doing that back about probably early 17. And it was a wild ride, I got to tell you. But I just started doing training sessions, free training sessions. I became the world's first completely free coach. And I think what really got my following going was the fact that I was actually in the business with a license, selling 100 properties as a single agent.
Right.
And I was filming live. I was doing live calls on YouTube. I was, and all the videos are still there.
Yeah.
From back in the day. I would film myself doing these live prospecting sessions. And I think that's what really kind of caught fire.
Yeah.
But nothing really went viral. I didn't ever have like a real viral moment or anything. I had a couple videos do really well, but I never really.
So it's kind of a slow build.
It was a slow build. It's just been a slow build. The Instagram, the YouTube, the email list.
You know what? I think important is that, there are some folks out there that do want to kind of, coach and kind of, inspire, motivate, but some of them haven't really kind of, they've talked the talk but haven't walked the walk. So you're someone that's kind of, obviously you've been through kind of the cycle. You had some success, you kind of took a huge step back, and then you were able to kind of build it back up.
It's funny because there's a lot of agents who have been in the business 2 years and sold 19 properties, and now they have a $500 course.
Yeah.
No, I got in when I was 20. I made a mill, lost it.
Yeah.
Right. 3-4 more years, I get back in. 6 more years after that, I get to 100 deals. Then I do that for 3 years before I even think about or have any kind of audacity towards teaching somebody how to do something.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's one reason why I haven't kind of got out of the real estate agent niche, because I'm so good at that.
Right.
If I felt like I was that good at something else, I could probably teach people how to do social and a few things, but I don't feel like I'm a master at it. And if I don't feel like I'm a master, I'm not going to come to you because I feel like, because I'm faking it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to come to you and try to teach you something that I'm not a master of.
Yeah.
I'm a master when it comes to communication, building a business for an agent, the email, all the things that I teach. I'm a master at that. I got that down. So that's where I'm comfortable.
Right.
So a lot of these guys, they will go out and try to coach and stuff. But to me, it's I don't do it for money.
Yeah.
I do it because I love to work.
Right.
And I love to help people. And at this point, I'm just serving.
Yeah.
So that any decision I make is not based on money. It's based on, will this impact others?
Yeah.
Because I can't spend all the money that I have.
Listen, I try to live by, one of Tony Robbins saying, the secret to living is giving. So there's different ways to give. It doesn't have to be financial. It could be obviously, in ways to kind of, educate, inspire. That's why I wrote my book, Do It Now, because, I saw so many of our agents, initially that were struggling when they first got into the business. And, it was just some of the simple things that they weren't doing in their business that would make all the difference in the world. And so, I just wanted to kind of find a way to kind of just guide them. And there was nothing more fulfilling. Frankly, even when I would do kind of some of my seminars, I would tell my wife, I'm like, this is like my favorite week out of the year, because this is my time now where you just feel that fulfillment of being able to help agents see the simple things that they can do that are truly going to change their business and their lives.
The first couple of years I was coaching, I lost about $100,000 a year for a couple of years. And it's like I was spending half my time on a business that lost money and neglecting my $1 million business as an agent.
Yeah.
And there were so many times where I was like, why am I doing this? It was frustrating. I kind of felt down, like this is not working. And I would get messages from agents saying, thank you.
Yeah.
Like I was about to quit, but now I have 8 listings, or, I got a listing off this, or I closed a deal because of you, or I made $100,000 last month because of you. People I didn't even know existed would reach out and tell me these things, and that's the fuel that kind of kept me going. I was like, okay, this is working.
Right.
I got to keep doing this. This is helping people. I could see that this was going to turn into something.
Right.
So
awesome. So in one of your recent YouTube videos, I saw that you talked about stack listings and no cold calls.
Yeah.
Can you dive a little deeper into that and kind of explain?
Yeah. So in today's world, people make a lot of decisions based on brand.
Right.
They buy, Nike, and they go to Publix, and they do these things even though they're a little more expensive.
Right.
And so brand means more now than ever.
Right.
And it's also true for agents, right? And so if you could build a brand, and so like, there's a company, you can get data, you can run Facebook ads directly to the property owners that you want to call, that you want to talk, that you want to list, that you want to do business with, where every single dollar goes directly to just that group of owners, right? You're not running a general ad to the general public, to people and they're living in their mom's basement, and these fake leads and all these weird people. It's just people you want to do business with. So what the video was about was that basically your sphere, people work their sphere pretty hard.
Right.
And they get what, a 1-2% a year closing rate out of their sphere, right?
Right.
Well, when you look at expires for sell by owners, for rent by owners, pre-foreclosures, that group is about a 40 or 50% a year listing rate. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so the point of the video was, okay, you're doing all this for your sphere for 1 or 2% rate. Why don't you just treat this group exactly the way that you treat your sphere?
Right.
And now you've went for a 1 to 2% rate to a 40% rate. True, these people know you more, but you can get these people to know you more too through ads, through direct mail, through email, through text. You can do all these things, right? Because you have all the data.
Right.
And you know, when you run a social media ad, the objective is to get somebody to click, right? And then you have their data, and then you call them.
Sure.
Well, with this, you already have the data. You're running ads. You don't care if they click. You just want them to see you 2 or 3 times a day until you do get to their name on the list where you do call them, and then they already know you. It's not a cold call, right? So you build the brand first through direct mail, through social. You should be doing organic and ads, right? That way when they see your ad, then they click on you, then there's some organic there.
Right.
And then, you know, you can text, you can email, you've got all their information.
Yeah.
And then by the time you actually talk to them, they already know who you are.
Yeah.
It's not a cold call anymore. So that was kind of the purpose of the video is, why aren't we treating this group that we have all the information for the same way you do your sphere? You know, it's a
These are folks that you know have the desire to sell.
Yes, it's low hanging fruit.
Yeah, I mean they're probably dealing with a little bit of pain right now themselves because their property maybe didn't sell for whatever reason, or FSBOs, for example. Obviously, they're maybe dealing with a little pain themselves. Whatever it is, right? You know, they have a desire.
My purpose is to learn your story.
Yeah.
Okay. I see your house was for sale at one point. I can't tell if it's on the market, off the market. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
You tell me what's going on, right? I see you're trying to sell this house, you know, for sale by owner. What's going on?
Yeah.
Just tell me what's happening so I can help you, right? They all have a different story.
Right.
But I need to hear the story. The problem agents have is they walk into these prospecting situations with the predetermined outcome. They're looking for a predetermined result that they've already established.
Right.
I want to set an appointment, or I want to get this person to see this property, or I want to, whatever it is. And it's like, we don't even know if that's the next step.
Yeah.
Until I talk to them to see what they want to do and why, what their timeline is, what's going on in their life. I've went 5 to 10 questions deep behind really what's going on.
Yeah.
I understand their situation more than they do probably because I've asked questions they haven't even thought of about their situation. And now I can say, okay, based on all that, just like a doctor does. A doctor doesn't say your stomach hurts. Well, let's just slice you open and see what's going on in there. No, they run tests.
Yeah.
You know, they for a couple days sometimes.
Yeah.
They run tests. They look at the whole thing. They can't even tell you. See, this is a great. She couldn't even tell you.
Yeah.
Right? Why are agents saying, okay, you want to sell it? Okay, we can sell it. This is what we'll do to sell it. No. I don't have all the information yet.
Yeah.
I got to run some more tests. I got to ask more questions. I got to understand this story from the complete top to bottom before I can say anything about what maybe the next step is an appointment.
Right.
Maybe not. Maybe the next step is looking at a house. Maybe the next step is me emailing you some stuff. Maybe the next step is meeting for coffee. I don't know. And if agents would take a step back and slow it down a little bit and understand their prospects just a little bit more and not have that predetermined result already established in their mind, so many opportunities.
Yeah.
You know how many expireds I represented as buyers? Like way more that relisted their property with me.
Right.
You know, like, because I'm trying to figure out what they want. They're like, yeah, you know, we try to sell it, but, you know, and I'm like, okay, well, you know, and they're like, hey, we're going to buy this thing. Oh, okay. Well, tell me about that. You know, and we go buy a lot they want to build on. A bunch of them. It's funny. I sold a lot of lots to expireds, or they buy this thing over here. I sold a commercial property to an expired guy one time, and way more expireds bought something from me than relisted their properties with me.
Right.
And I just find that fascinating.
You know, I was taught this many years ago, and I forget where I actually heard it from originally, but I try to tell this to my agents as well, is especially not just the brand new agents, but even some of the seasoned agents, because they'll forget. Selling is not telling. It's asking questions. You got to know exactly what are the needs, must-haves, must-wants of your clients, and really kind of come up with a plan to help, you know, service them at the best possible way. So we touched on this earlier. Let me kind of go back on into this. The big NAR settlement last year. So how do you see, and what have you seen so far? So we already touched on, obviously, commissions. It hasn't really impacted commissions. In fact, they've gone up in some cases. But how do you see it impacting the way we just conduct our business today, right? You know, and even moving forward with policies and, you know, different changes with, you know, how folks will take listings, how they present listings, buying on the buying side. How do you see that impacting?
I think it's already taken effect. I think we're at the new norm. I don't think it's going to change much more than it is now, unless more regulation comes in and they try to say we can't do this or can't do that, or we have to say this, you have to disclose that, or whatever. But even with that, nothing's going to change when you leave it up to the market. I mean, that's what they did. What they didn't realize was that the market was already in place for what the market is,
right,
and what it would be even if you subtracted things. The biggest. I think the part nobody looks at, because people are still coming down on agents. Mm-hmm. They're still saying, "Oh, well, this didn't change the thing. NAR just worked a deal to keep things the same." We did. We worked the deal based on what the plaintiffs and the class action lawyers wanted us to do. Right? We wrote a deal, and then they want us to change a few things, which we gladly did. Right. And now we're, whatever y'all want, just tell us what you want us to do. We're here.
Yeah.
And I think what irks me the most about it is that I feel like the lawyers came in and said, let's go make $100 million. We'll sell this scenario that we're going to change the world. Commissions are going to come down. Home prices are going to come down. Right. And on the back of that, potential amazing outcome for consumers, we're going to get all these people on board and go make $100 million, which they did. And now none of that stuff has come true.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So who are the crooks in this whole situation? But I don't think it'll affect us any more than it already has. And I think this social experiment, I want to call it, is what we're doing right now, is really kind of proving the fact that it doesn't matter what kind of eggs you try to throw at us, that it kind of is what it is, and sellers are going to look at what their net bottom line is.
Sure.
Right? That's what they're going to focus on. It's what they've always focused on. It's all they care about. And they're going to negotiate whatever the best net is going to be for them.
Right.
They don't care if they have to pay for a buyer agent fee or this fee or that fee, as long as they're going to make what they want to make out of the deal. It's really all that matters. So I find it comical almost the way this whole thing is played out. And I'm just sitting back eating popcorn watching, because people are still acting like they're going to come in and agents are horrible. And, and every industry has bad salespeople that go out and do some unethical stuff.
Yeah.
Every industry does. I don't disagree with that, or I can admit that there are some agents that do some shady stuff. Sure.
Yeah.
But overall, I believe that we are very, I believe that agents, because I know them, I know hundreds of thousands of them. They're some of the most resilient people with the highest level of integrity that I've ever seen.
Right.
Regardless of what you want to say, if you got one bad apple, it makes it look like all the other apples are bad.
Exactly.
And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. So last question, and I really appreciate your time here today, Ricky. So you had also talked about, I saw in one of your videos or posts, the zero to diamond idea, in essence, to help folks really be able to secure more listings. Talk to us a little bit about kind of that whole idea. And
well, it's a principle-based coaching program.
Okay.
I think you should just call property owners, because at the end of the day, even if you get Zillow leads or social media leads or whatever, you still got to call them. And if that's the case, if you got to call people, why not call the exact people you want to do business with?
Right.
And that way you're working at the most efficient rate possible. But I digress. If you don't want to, fine, go do social, do Zillow. It doesn't matter to me.
Right.
What I care about is, are you having enough conversations with the right people to move your business at the pace of growth that you want? It's really all I really care about.
Right.
At that point, when you get to the conversation, I want to make sure you know how to communicate. So this is what I can just honestly say I am a master of, is talking to prospects.
Right.
That's the one thing, if I had to say one thing that I can do that is probably one of the best in the world, is talking to prospects. Not to get them to do something, but to get them to tell me what they want to do.
Right.
And get them comfortable enough with me to tell me, so that I can figure out where the opportunity is, how I can structure a deal with them that's going to best serve them, right, for their best interest. I'm notorious for negotiating down on my commission, because I'm not doing it for money. Right. I'm doing it for the relationship with the person, because I know every relationship that I put in place is worth 10 to 20 deals to me over the life of my career. And some agents say, well, if you discount on this, then all the deals you get from them, dude, do you realize how many full commissions I got for, you know, like I started out, like went from 3.5 to 2.5, I mean, from 3 to 2.5, you know, or something like that. And then end up getting 3 from that client from there on out, because once they get a taste of the level of service and how different I am or whatever agent is in terms of, you know, their aggressiveness, attentiveness, their integrity to, you know, answer calls and make sure this happens and that happens and stuff. It's rare to find somebody that's going to take care of you at the level that these deals are super sensitive deals.
Sure.
And one little thing is like a domino, can be like a domino. And you want someone, this is why we're at an all-time high with people that use agents, because it's such a sense, these are really sensitive deals. And one little thing going wrong could just spiral the whole thing into, you know, chaos. But yeah, I teach on the principles because regardless of AI or technology or anything, you know, the more things change, the more things you got to depend on that don't change.
Right.
And what's never going to change in real estate is the fact that you got to talk to people. You got to make them open up to you about what they want to do and why. And I also teach agents to do a weekly email on the same day of the week forever. I mentioned it a couple times. This is the glue, man. You know, when you do that, and I've added text in there as well to do text blast to your database. Not cold text, people you don't know, not cold emails to people you don't know. I'm talking about your database, people you've talked to that have said, stay in touch with me. The problem is agents go out here and they try to do the shortcut and just, you know, blast a bunch of people that don't know. They get a bunch of unsubscribes or opt-outs, and it screws their whole the whole integrity of their platform. And now they can't even email, they can't text. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about marketing here. I'm talking about relationship nurturing, right? And so if you can, there's 2 formulas that I teach. The $1 million formula, whereas let's say you get 1,000 leads a year. Well, if you're doing an email, those 1,000 leads remember you the next year and the next year and the next year. You get 1,000 the next year. Well, now your business is twice as big with the same amount of work, because you got the people from last year and this year. Right. The third year, you had another 1,000, you're at 3.
Just building.
Well, now your business is 3 times as big.
Right.
Even though you put in the same amount of work as the first year, it's 3 times as big. And you build it up to the amount of income you want, then you don't have to prospect anymore. That's what happened to me.
Yeah.
I made $1 million, never prospected another day. I made $1 million for 4 more years before I retired.
Right.
Just off the email.
Yeah.
And so it's super powerful to understand. The problem is agents, they bounce around from brokerage to brokerage, from this lead gen to that lead gen to this social media thing. And they bounce around because they'll start on something. And then after a couple months or weeks, they can't visualize it getting them where they want to be.
Right.
They have no clarity that this is going to work long term.
And they're not patient. They're just ready to.
Yeah.
They want it now.
Well, even beyond the patience, nobody actually sits down and says, if you do this, this is what your business is like in 5 years.
Yeah.
They're just like all the shiny penny things is like, here, how to get a listing a day, how to sell something a day. Versus what I do is I help agents see the clarity, even if it's Zillow leads or I don't care what it is, but I help them through the relationship nurture process, actually visualize how you get from point A to point B in 5 years and get to the $1 million, the $500,000, wherever you want to be. And so that's the $1 million formula. It helps them find clarity. And then, so that's the long term, right? The short term, and this is what I did. If you want to close 1 to 2 deal or one deal, if you want to close 1 deal a week, every week on average, you need 15 to 20 ABSs at all times, active buyers and sellers, people looking to buy or sell within the next 6 months that might use you as an agent.
Right.
If you got 15 to 20, you're always following up with, you're taking people off that ghost you, you're adding new people too, and you maintain that 15 to 20, you're going to close on average 1 deal a week, as long as you maintain that list. If you want to do 2 deals a week like I did for 8 years in a row, I maintained 25 plus at all times, and I closed on average 2 deals a week every week for 8 years as a single agent. And I was sitting on my head.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I realized when I got there. It was way easier at that point when you build it right to make $100,000 a month than it was to make $100,000 a year. When I was making $100,000 a year, I was working like 50 hours a week.
Right.
Just losing my mind.
Yeah.
But when I got to where I was making $100,000 a month, it was like I was working 20 hours a week. Me and my assistant were in the office bored looking at each other like, what are we going to do?
Right.
You know, and that's the way you have to kind of visualize kind of, you know, your business. And so you can use the $1 million formula to see the mountaintop,
Right.
but then you use the ABS formula to close as many deals as you want today.
Yeah.
In the short term. So that gives you a taste of kind of what I do, but there's a lot of communication skills.
I love what you're saying there. I mean, one of the things I always picked up from Grant Cardone is that you look at the word contact and you look at the word contract, and if you put them side by side, the only difference in spelling is the letter R. It stands for relationships. Right. So when I heard that that one time, I'm like, man, that thing's stuck. I'm like, I've used that now a million times. But Ricky, listen, I appreciate you taking time to be here today. Where can folks that are maybe seeing you for the first time, which shame on you if you are, but you got to follow this guy. So where can they follow you?
Yeah. And for people watching my podcast, because I'll put this on mine as well, this is Joe LaRosa. Like the Joe LaRosa with LaRosa Real Estate. They took their company public. He has an incredible story, so definitely go follow this guy as well. But I'm everywhere. You put Ricky Carruth in the little internet thing. But Instagram is a great place. I post there really consistently, and YouTube, of course. But I've got a free 90-day action plan, 0 to diamond.com/90. It's a 44-page deck with all my scripts, strategies, all the stuff. If you guys want to grab that as well.
All right. Awesome. Well, again, man, appreciate your time.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, man. So that's going to be our episode here for this week. And we appreciate all of you for watching and following us. And we'll see you guys here next time.